Well, hello. Good to see you all. Let me just start by doing it like this. Well, fantastic to be here. I had some fantastic conversations yesterday during the dinner, and I think we're on to something. This is a great forum. I'm going to tell you a little bit about another forum, much smaller than this one, that we've been running, called the Nordic CEOs for Sustainable Future. We started this project, so to say, a little over 5 years ago, and today I'm going to give you a brief insight into how we work, what we're trying to accomplish, and the vision of the group, so that you can see maybe some practical examples of what the private sector wants to do and how we want to collaborate with the public sector to advance on our sustainability development journey. So first off, my name is Þorsteinn, and I work for a company here in Iceland called Marel. We're a global food processing machinery and solution provider. So for instance, yesterday when you were eating your fish, there is a very high probability that the fish was processed by Marel Solutions. And this we do across the globe. And due to the size of this company I work for and some of the sustainability initiatives that we have been working on in the past, we were invited to start this group of Nordic CEOs that wanted to advance on the journey towards sustainable development together. We have a common goal in this group, which is to align business models with ethical, social, and environmental priorities to help achieve the UN Sustainability Development Goals. We have two main processes that we operate through. One of them is to work together and exchange progressive practices and explore how we can together encourage each other's and companies around us to achieve more sustainable outcomes in their business models. I think this is something that a lot of companies could do much more of, which is just to talk to each other and encourage each other. And the opportunities that we have with our CEOs to have them sit together and put peer pressure on each other to advance the sustainability agenda, it really can accomplish almost miracles. We see so many actions and targets put in place just because my CEO can sit down with his board and say, well, everybody else is doing it, we have to do it, which is basically what we want to do with the peer pressure element. But we also talk about how to do and conduct business in a more sustainable manner. And then the other part, the other big process that we want to emphasize is to work with prime ministers in the Nordic region to make sure that we accelerate the actions on how to transition to a more sustainable economy. And this we feel is crucial because we are never going to get there. We are never going to achieve the SDGs unless we all work together. And by working together, I'm talking we need sticks and carrots from our governments, and we need concrete dialogues where we want to achieve something and we want to be able to push each other and highlight the successes that we do both from a private and a public perspective together. And this is something that we feel the Nordics are usually pretty good at. We understand and we have respect for each other. We see ourselves sometimes as a single region, sometimes as nations that are competing internally, but mostly we feel like we share some similar values that enable us to actually work on this. There are three things that make the Nordic CEOs for a sustainable future very unique. First off, it's driven by CEOs. So the top level executive managers of these companies that are in the group, they are the ones that own it and they run the agenda. They speak to each other, they reach out to each other, and they sit down at least twice a year in person and around 4 times a year in general, to speak with each other and encourage each other and push the envelope together. The companies that are in the group are built on shared values of inclusion, equality, and thinking long term, which is also something that is pretty synonymous with the way we want to conduct business here in the Nordics. We're used to harsh conditions in the past, and we understand that we need to be thinking very long term in order for us to survive. We are also pretty small, most of us, so we need to understand how we can leverage our courage and how we can leverage our values in order to stand out in the global capital markets. Third, very important, which is this dialogue that we've tried to establish and have actually established with the prime ministers in the Nordics. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but we believe that when the public and the private sector come together, that's where we can actually have some magic happening. Here is the current group. So we have companies from Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Iceland, and unfortunately at the moment we don't have a Finnish company, but there were 2 some years ago, both Nokia and Finnair, that when they changed CEOs, because it's a CEO-led initiative, when the CEOs were changed there, then we didn't find the replacement for them. But we're still looking. So if there are any Finnish companies sitting in the room, then please reach out. But these are the CEOs, and I'm very happy to say that as strange as it sounds, these guys and girls they've become friends. The meetings are on very, very friendly notes, and they have fun together. And I think one of the other things which is important here is that these leaders, I feel like leaders need to meet more often in like personal settings, face to face, and have candid discussions with each other. And that's what this group does, based on the premise of the Nordic CEOs for a Sustainable Future. A little rundown on the history or key milestones. So in Davos 2018, the idea was born. Erna Solberg, the then Prime Minister of Norway, she came to some Norwegian companies and said, we need to do something in the Nordic region together. We're too small, the countries, to have a strong voice in the global economy, but if we do it together, then we might have something more to say, or at least people will start listening to us and understand that the well-being economy here in the Nordic is something that others might be able to replicate. But it's for us to tell the world what we know and learn and what we can teach others. So they had a meeting in Oslo, and in 2019, the Nordic CEOs, all of them, as well as all the Nordic prime ministers, they had a meeting here, and actually on this stage, and signed a common agreement, commitments to further collaborating. And that's what we have been doing since 2019. I skip forward to May 21. That's where we publish our first white paper, which is something that we really want to do. All of the companies, when they start working together, they see that there's a lot that we can share. So we publish white papers, and we have a fantastic selection of white papers on some of the topics that we've been working on. One of them, which was I think very important, and something that a lot of companies could actually look into and learn from, is how to do climate risk assessment from a financial perspective. This is, and use the TCFD guidelines, basically, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. We, together with Mari Shapiro, who was the former chair of the SEC in the US, and Mike Bloomberg, former mayor of New York, we published this together with the group, and it's been read and used by a number of companies since then. And we're really happy to see that companies have started to disclose on in alignment with TCFD. In 22, we launched the Diversity and Inclusion Guide to help companies do that, which we are also really proud of. But we also extended and created a unique external secretariat around the group to run business, because it was just getting too much for the people that were working in the company. But to give you a brief insight into how we govern things there, the CEOs are basically the board of directors, and then the heads of sustainability or public affairs, they operate as the champions of the group, and we form the executive team, and then we have tasks delegated into the companies where we collaborate on a number of different topics. One thing that we did earlier this year is we published new commitments of the group, because the Nordic CEOs want to be a group of companies that actually has actions, not words, create the direction of the group. So and I'm going to go through this now in a few minutes, the commitments on the strategy and target setting, for instance, where we have two key pillars, which is the environment, where all the companies have set science-based targets. So we align with the Paris Agreement there for a 1.5 degree scenario on how to reduce our carbon emissions. We've all included and integrated the recommendations from the TCFD on climate risk assessment. And we have started now looking into doing nature and biodiversity based risk assessment as well from a financial perspective. Something that we're really proud of is to highlight the diversity and inclusion part. One of the targets that we have there is to aim for a maximum of 60% of any gender in the top 3 management levels, which is ambitious, but also very important. Because if the companies that are leading this discussion cannot mirror the way our society is built up, then I think they have no real purpose of creating a change for the society they operate in. So this is why we believe that diversity and inclusion is crucial when it comes to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. A clear action that we've done, which we're really proud of, is to offer a minimum of 4 months fully paid parental leave for all primary caregivers in all companies across the globe. And this is a costly exercise, but I believe this is the most just thing we can do on wage equality and gender equality in general, is to bridge the gap that comes when the primary caregivers need to take time off during the biggest moments in their lives. And this is an encouragement also to the governments to make sure that they understand that we don't think that parental leaves are being reimbursed well enough at the moment. This is creating a true divide in our societies. So we're addressing that directly. But we also want to integrate ESG targets into our executive performance management framework, and make sure that we are aligning on some key climate advocacy targets. Looking forward, it's also important to report on this. So we do report on some key indicators associated with some frameworks such as CDP, TCFD, a lot of acronyms here, sorry about that, but also to make sure that we measure and report gender balance, at least in the top 3 levels, but also overall, and that we disclose, and this one is really important, and address gender pay gap, both adjusted and unadjusted across our whole organizations. Something that we believe will create a lot of transparency when it comes to talking about diversity and inclusion in the workforce. Last but not least, since we're running out of time, I'm going to skip this one because, well, we can stop for a little while here, because we also believe, and this is where we can actually help the governments probably the most, is to help them understand how to do sustainable procurement. Because the private sector is so much more advanced when it comes to this, and procurement practices in general. Creating a clear and good supplier code of conduct and doing weighting of sustainability in the process of procurement is something that these companies are doing, and we can do so much more of in the government. And if there's one thing that we can do to change the narrative as well as the direction around sustainability and how to reach the Sustainable Development Goals, it's through procurement. This is where we spend the monies of the taxpayers. And if we can't do that in a sustainable way, we're probably not going to move very fast going forward. So it's absolutely something I want to highlight, that here the private and the public sector can really help each other out. Last but not least, I mean, we're on a journey. And I think when we started out in 2018, we wanted to inspire the private sector in general on climate and diversity. We're maturing, and we're moving towards our vision where Nordic's leadership on the sustainability agenda can be showcased in unity to the world. And I think this, the fact that I'm standing here and giving you this message to digest is a testimony to the accomplishments that this group has made. And if you have any inquiries or if you have any questions or you want to get in touch with us, then please reach out. All information about us you can find on nordicceos.com, I think it is, or you just Google Nordic CEOs for Sustainable Future, probably the easiest way to do it. I'll leave you with that, and thank you so much for your attendance.